name is Randy Shafer. I'm the USA Cycling's Technical Director. I'm also an international official for road, track, and paracycling. And I'm here today to comment on last year's points race with Jennifer Valente from the USA Cycling. So today we're going to talk about the start of a points race, and this is the World Championships from last year. You're going to see right now that the assistants are up at the track making sure that their riders are prepared for the ride. You notice that some of the coaches and trainers are leaving the track. The riders at the top are starting at the rail. They'll actually push themselves off, use the banking of the track to accelerate. Riders down below are on the blue band. Their coaches are going to hold them, and eventually they're going to push them off once they're ready to start. At this point in time, the officials are looking at the riders, the bikes, making sure that everything is in order. And as you saw previously, some of the riders are having their numbers checked and making sure that everything is ready to go. Here we're going for the start. This will be called a neutral start. Riders are pushed off. The riders are going to group themselves together at a fairly reasonable pace. These riders are off the front, but as long as everybody catches back up or is going about the same speed, they will have a start from the official starter. Right now they're completing almost that first lap, and everybody is pretty much together. You'll see the officials start the race at that point, and at this point we have a 100-lap points race, 25 kilometers. Sprints will be every 10 laps, and as we'll see later, there's point scoring that actually happens on a race like this. The scoring happens every 4 places, 5, 3, 2, and 1 points for the winners of each sprint. The final sprint is counted double. And you can also score points by what they call taking a lap. In other words, the rider may lap the field, and if they can actually do that, they're given another 20 points for their total. Here we've got the racing underway now. It's strung out a bit. People are testing the legs of the other riders, trying to see who's going to be ready to attack. Riders at the back basically are just sitting there, saving their energy because they're drafting. And you can typically decide how fast the race is going by how strung out it is. At any point that you see the field bunched up and wide across the track, that means people are slowing up, generally taking strategic decisions to rest or to decide who's going to be forcing the pace at the front. Oftentimes this is done to force another opponent to actually take the lead and do a little bit more work. Here we're at 97 laps to go, so we barely started, and everybody again is feeling everybody else out in terms of who's going to be significant in the competition. And each lap we get closer towards the sprint, the faster the riders will go. Generally, attacks can happen at any time during a race, and it always depends. Every race is different. It has a different feel and look based on the competitors, what the strategic decisions for the day are. Here again, we're just starting to move a little bit faster. A few riders are deciding to go faster. You can see small splits in the field. You can see riders dropping in, taking advantage of that, but basically everybody is staying in line and moving together as a single bunch. We'll probably start to see the action pick up at about 2 laps before the sprint, which should be at 92 laps to go. And here again, they're focusing on the favorites with the television. Again, it's just information at this point because we don't know what the strategy of the race will be. Here we see the race starting again at 92 laps to go, 2 laps before the sprint. Riders are high on the track, all looking to see who's going to lead out the sprint. And you start to see people accelerating towards the front, trying to gain position. And the riders who are thinking maybe this is not their first sprint, they're actually sitting towards the back. Here again, it's still fairly wide, but you see some accelerations at the front. You see a Dutch rider, you see the US rider, Jennifer Valente, at the front. They are now at 1 lap to go to the sprint, and things are really accelerating. You can now see how the field is strung out. And definitely people at the front want to go faster, and you can see at that moment that Jen actually takes the lap. Generally after a sprint, the field will tend to slow up, but it's also a strategic moment where people can try to force the pace. You now have 2 riders with a fresh attack going at 3 laps to go, hoping for those final points and hoping for a slight movement in their point standings. One of the interesting things about the points race that's sometimes difficult to understand is where the leader is, especially in the final sprint. The final sprint, again, is points, and again, the point total is what actually gives us the winner, not necessarily the positions in the final sprint. If there was a tie, the tie would be broken by the final sprint, where that would be a very important sprint for people to actually have with each other. So the leader has to know either they have a comfortable margin or not, or they have to know who their next opponent is in points to make sure that they protect themselves from being overtaken in that final sprint. Here we are in the final sprint. We see Jennifer out in front at the moment. We see people attacking behind her. And it looks like as they come to the line, she takes second place in this sprint, so she gains 6 points. But it's not sufficient at this point to overtake the leader, who finished at the back of the field. Again, just finishing a race and being the leader based on points overall. Just want to remind everybody that the women's points race is coming up this Sunday. Jennifer will be out there. We want to wish her the best of luck, as well as all the competitors that will be competing. Thank you.